There's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP Morning Show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP. Hey, Gumpers.
Hey, you Gumpers, how you doing? Munson here from expatsportugal.com with the Good Morning Portugal live stream. Tudo bem? Como estás? Bom dia, alegria. Goldilocks was in. Look at this, 7:19, 77 minutes before the show starts, and I'm here alone. Oh my goodness, I want to hear some Neil Diamond music playing in the background there. This daylight saving stuff in the US is really giving me the blues. I turned up for the Gumper Show, 77 minutes early. I'll be back in an hour, he says, but he might have fallen back to sleep. We'll see if he comes back or not. I'll hit the like button before I go. Oh, thanks, Baldy-Locks. That's so thoughtful and excellent of you. Thank you so much. One and all, actually, who turned up for the gardening show last night. It was great. 6:15 every Monday evening. We do a gardening Q&A. More people interested in, incidentally. Yeah, this, of course, Consumer Tuesday, with prices going up in supermarkets all over the world. More people interested in growing their own food. And there are a few of you seasoned, green-thumbed, green-fingered folk who've been doing it for years, and you may well be a great help to us with your know-how. So do join us on a Monday evening for that under the excellent leadership of head gardener McGrady. And we had a lovely lady with us last night from Plymouth. And Plymouth, some of you Americans, of course, will know Plymouth or have heard of Plymouth. Plymouth in the southwest of England in Devon. And Helen Moore was with us from a project that takes over fly-tipped land, abandoned land, and she starts growing food with people from the communities, especially a lot of people with mental health issues and disabilities, and giving people a chance to come together, grow food, and reclaim old abandoned land that has been tipped upon. And some great photos, really great. We're gonna have her back. We're talking about water conservation on the show yesterday, and we will continue that theme, obviously, with the drought going on here in Portugal. We have Consumer Tuesday with you, and after 9, remember Paul Correa? I love talking to him actually about investing. Not that I'm a big investor, I'm just fascinated by the whole subject. If you are too, do join us for that. He'll be here after 9 o'clock, and he has a special angle on Brits who the pain points, as he called them, of moving to Portugal, managing your money, moving to Portugal, and managing it once you're here, pensions, those sorts of things, and managing instead of keeping it under the mattress, where might you put it, and where is it safe in a geopolitically charged and difficult situation in the world now? And of course, that affects everyone's economy, doesn't it? And arguably, lots of people have already been affected. We're the lucky ones, aren't we? But it's getting very close to us, isn't it now? And I think that's part of why everybody is. Plymouth is in Cornwall, not Devon. Thank you, Gary. You've been. Yes, you're quite right. It's just over the. Is it just over the bridge? No, it is just. I can't remember now. But yes, of course, Plymouth is in Cornwall. I lived in Devon, and Plymouth is in Cornwall. Thank you for that correction, Gary Orgles. Yeah, but with things so uncertain in the world, or as we're led to believe, and things getting closer to home, that's certainly true, isn't it? You can see the evidence in the supermarkets, and when you try and fill up your car. How can you best look after the money you have got? And so special focus for the Brits, pension-wise, amassed fortunes, that sort of stuff. Paul wants to help you from fiduciary wealth management. And those of you who've been tuned in and listened for a long time, you'll know we've had some interesting discussions with Paul. I wonder if Kate Gimblett will come back ever. She who was not a fan of the crypto, and she and Paul used to clash on economic policy, on global economic policy. And I think Paul is quite old-fashioned in that regard. Kate is an economist and had something other to say about how the governments of the world manage their finances. It's not like managing a household, as some famous politicians said in the 80s. Okay, so who's in? Sam's in. Diasin Draga's here with one of those funny messages. So let's get rid of jazzing, shall we? Has anyone figured out what these messages are? These VOR messages. There's some kind of robot message, aren't they? Maybe we're being monitored by social media just to make sure we're not putting out any false news at all. It happens occasionally, not because we want to or we're trying to guide things in any particular direction. Peace and love here on the Good Morning Portugal live stream, and just trying to help people move to Portugal and help those who are already here. And yes, it's safeguard. I'm talking of mental health earlier on, safeguarding and looking after all our mental health, those with an interest in coming here to Portugal and those already here. So at 9 o'clock, Paul's joining us. We'll have a great chat about investing in troubled times. And I've got so many other consumer news stories. Obviously, the rising energy prices and shopping prices here in Portugal, as they are everywhere, but keeping you abreast of that, especially for the people who live here and are interested in your comments on such things as well. So, Baldilocks, thank you for being here 77 minutes before show start. And so was the prof, not quite that early, but certainly earlier. Bom dia, amigos, romanos, contrareños, emprestem-me sus ouvidos. Okay, so that'll be friends, Romans, and countrymen, won't it? Lend me your ears. I think a sign, not an Ide of, it could be an Ide of March, couldn't it? Yes, maybe, perhaps. He's been inspired. This is the month of the Ides, isn't it? Of course. And another in an occasional series, The Origins of Portugal. I don't have a vingle for that, so I'm going to have to adapt this one, but I'll play this one for now. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So what can we learn from the Russians? That's not a good start, is it? What can we learn from the Romans today? I'm not even going to go there, right? So going back a comment. Origins of Portugal. What have Romans ever done for us? 218 BCE. That's the new way of saying BC, isn't it? The Romans occupied Portugal from the 3rd century BCE. Is that before Christ emerged? Tell me, please, what does BCE stand for? Initially, as part of the second I so want to say pubic war, just to inject a little bit of lightheartedness into this, but I won't be silly and childish like that. The Second Punic War with Carthage. The Second Punic War with Carthage. From 218 BCE onwards, the Roman conquest of what is now modern-day Portugal took decades to be continued, folks. So we're casting our minds back to 218 BC, and I want to know what that means. Matty's jumped in, I think, as the prof was sharing his history lecture here. Hola, bom dia, criaturas. Had to miss. I thought you were already coming on your way. Had to miss yesterday's show as we were loading the trailer, and we'll miss today's show too, as I'm loading the car and ride to Portugal. Oh, okay, be like that. We, as in you and the dogs, or have you got another passenger with you there, Matty? Although you probably won't hear this because you're busy packing, as you said. 7:44, 7:45, back to 7:45, and by way of the 7:45 portal of current time, we are now back into 18 BCE. In the south, the Romans found the Conii, natives of what was to become the Alentejo Algarve. They suffered a severe setback in 150 BCE when a rebellion in the north occurred. But more of that another day. Yes, and of course, we've heard about the Northern Rebellion, haven't we? And how Ponte Lima, I think, famously illustrates and showcases the arrival of the Romans there. There's a special art installation out there, Ponte Lima, that references the Romans. Keep on saying the Russians and the Romans, but I suppose it's all about sort of invasionary dynamics, isn't it? The province became known as Lusitania after the tribes they found there. So the big question on everybody's lips this morning, what did the Romans do for Portugal? Talking about Monty Python last night on the new music show that we're doing at 7:30 on a Monday evening with Thunderduck. Where's he this morning? Oh, he's here. That's okay. I thought he'd drunk a little bit too much during the show and was having a lie-in this morning. Deagle's here. Bon dia, Carl. 70 days till I'm back in Portugal. Second of 3 trips out this year. Ooh, very organised. And thank you for your pictures yesterday evening for the gardening show, Deagle. A real renaissance man among us with so many different skills and interests in life, and already booked second of 2 more trips, booked 2 more trips out to Portugal. Fantastic, Deagle. And are they all Algarve focused, I wonder, or are you going to come and see me? The legacy of Roman domination, from Deagle back to the Romans now, from Belfast back to Lusitania. The legacy of Roman domination was the Portuguese language, which directly derives from Latin and the production of wine and calçada limestone pavements. Ooh, of course. Never made that connection, which all have their antecedents in Roman rule. Very good. The very name Portugal, derives from Portuscale, Portuscal, the Latin name for present-day Porto. In Roman times, the present-day districts of Beja and Évora formed part of Rome's wheat belt. Things don't change today. The wheat belt and invasions to get hold of resources. As Timmy Thomas once said, why can't we live together? Bon dia, alegria, gumpers from the aforementioned T-Duck, Stephen Wright, Romans and friends, Romans and American comedians. The Stephen Wright quote of the day, and I saw a little bit of his video. The Google must be listening to me because it served me up some Stephen Wright. I'm going to get an MRI to find out whether I have claustrophobia. And George Carlin quote of the day: the main reason, incoming, the main reason Santa is so jolly is because he knows where all the bad girls live. Not very seasonal, but very funny. Notable Roman remains of buildings, not people, include the Temple of Diana at Évora and the site of Canimbriga. Rome spread Christianity from the 1st century CE. What is all this? AD, BC when I was at school. Now it's BCE and CE. Perhaps something to do. The seed still refers to Christ, presumably. I don't know. That's going to be explained to me, I suspect. It's 9:15 already. Come, let's crack on. The final years of the Roman rule ended with the arrival of the Germanic tribes. Here we go. Here's the punchline, everybody. Listen up. The final years of Roman rule ended with the arrival of the Germanic tribes in the early 5th century CE, who claimed Portugal by draping their beach towels on the first thing in the morning. Draping their towels on Portugal on the first thing in the morning. Ha ha, very good. Yes, you go to the Algarve Deagle. Hola, bon dia todos. Faixa do dia. Let's dance, put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Let's Dance by David Bowie. This was his big, overrated, I think. Anyway, I didn't say that. Let's not get sidetracked any more than we are already. This was his biggest hit. Amazing song, iconic video, and the magic touch of Nile Rodgers, of course. Bowie was very good at that, wasn't he? Bringing excellent people like Luther Vandross. It's singing backups on Young Americans, of course. No, that was Elton John. Sorry, different track. I was thinking that had an excellent enhancement, but we won't go there. To see this performed live by Chic is a treat. Yes, that's true enough, isn't it? Perhaps they're the 80-20 of that track. Very good, Chris. Thank you very much for that. So Nubianette, according to Ancestry.com, I'm around 3% Iberian. I'm coming back to get a piece of my inheritance. I can't differentiate Portuguese from... Oh, they can't differentiate, not you, they at Ancestry.com can't differentiate Portuguese from Spanish. I'm sure that's disappointing for Portuguese people and Spanish, probably. I've decided to go on a pilgrimage to... Oh, look at this. My name is Earl. I enjoyed seeing this comment earlier on. I've decided to go on a pilgrimage to find my school friend Denise, who was the first person to tell me about Portugal. I haven't seen her for 47 years. I have a lot to thank her for. Well, can we help with that? Denise, are you tuned in this morning? Maybe not yet, but or have you been watching all this time thinking, there goes Chris? I remember telling him about Portugal. No, he's loving it. Excellent. I love David Bowie. Oh, sorry for what I said earlier on. I'm too drowsy to dance right now. That wasn't an invitation exactly. We're not allowed to play music here. Can you imagine what the show would be like if we could actually play all the music we loved? Banana Slug James is, how you doing, mate? Feliz terça todos. Como vai? Very good. How you going? And OLP's in as well. Bon dia, Gumpers. Yes, I agree. I do set my alarm at 1:15 a.m. Portugal will be with us the last weekend of March. Okay, yes, some catching up to do there. The Spanish-Portuguese differences may well not be genetic, says James. With the new banana slugs, those slippers are the must-have for any self-respect or any Gumper who doesn't bother about respecting themselves anymore could be wearing those, couldn't they? Excellent. But they're in the picture, by the way, is YouTube. Excellently sourced, nearly ignored by me there. I saw them, James, don't you worry. But you wouldn't know it by some of them, how they talk about each other. It's definitely cultural, not genetic. Ha ha, says James. Morning all from Chris. When can we hear your music, Chris? Your fine bluegrass music and playing. And Dimitri Martin quote of the day from James. I am bravery. I am courage. I am valor. I am daring. I am holding a thesaurus. Very good. Do you say thesaurus or thesaurus? I'll have to look that up in a thesaurus website. Oh, no, a dictionary to find out how to pronounce it, of course. Lol from Chris. Laughing already. I'm wondering what was it the morning glory joke that we had on the that slipped past me yesterday on the gardening show, Jason Hall. Bon dia todos. He had a rather a withered morning glory that had seen better days, and he was wondering how to pot it and what could be done to recondition it or something. Bon dia todos. Yes, you get the picture. Bon dia. Bon dia todos from Ron in Cascais. Well, Ron's back in Cascais, everybody. And Raj is in as well, as is Pam. Good morning to you all. It's so nice. I was going to say it's nice to have a little bit of sanity in the world, but we can hardly describe ourselves as that. But you know what I mean. Excited for your return, Deagle. I also wanted you to know that your check-ins about your language study inspire and encourage me. I'm assuming you still haven't missed a day this year. I'm sure that's true. And of course, we should give credit where it's due. This is important in these times, isn't it? It's to acknowledge the little and great things in life, because it's easy to be distracted by the negativity, and that's how the mind works, isn't it? The human mind. Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. I won't miss a chance to sing that for a second time, and I'll keep doing it as long as you keep putting David Bowie lyrics in the chat. Actually, I won't, because you'll put Laughing Gnome or something like that in one of his greatest works. Like button smashed in Nubianette's household, beyond repair, possibly. Gary Orgle's Bon dia on time this morning. Nigel Henry's here as well. Morning from... so you're back over in Oxford. Yeah, old swallow flying back and forth there. Oh, those lovely little puppies doing. Anything on Thursday, St. Patrick's Day, says Deagle. The whole world wants to be Irish on this day. Well, we ought to do something. We've got Luis coming back from Global International Relocation, talking about moving cars. Are there any famous Irish cars, I wonder, Deagle? We'll bring that together. Maybe he can tell us, because he's got some great anecdotes, as old Luis. He might have a very famous Irish person that he helped to move over to Portugal. We'll find a way of raising a glass to all our Irish friends and to St. Patrick on Thursday. Might need a reminder on that. Ubi's here as well. How you doing, Ubi? Bon dia todos from you. Michelle, thank you for the hilarious cartoon that you sent me. Yes, indeed. And I think Netflix, they will have to change, because they probably were working on that, as you suggested there. Behold, the keeper of the lights, smash the like button. I can imagine him as a Roman standing there in his toga. I am the keeper of the lights. I am Lycus Maximus. It's the feel-good factor. Oh, Lycus Maximus there. And hola, bon dia, good morning, good evening from the future. Ooh, what's he got? Has he got himself some of Tesla technology, and he's actually speaking to us from tonight, I wonder? Or should we be scared, or are you just in Australia? Not just. There's no just about it, is there? In your magnificent country. But is that what you mean, or are you actually speaking to us from the future? I suppose technically you are, aren't you? And there's nothing we can do about it. Hola, bon dia, kids, from a sunny Praia de Rocha. This morning, I'm at my... How you doing, Victoria? Great to hear from you. And Moaz, I am at my gerontologist's office waiting for my appointment. I'm almost 1 year overdue for my colonoscopy. Oh, forgive me, Moaz, but in this sort of field of medicine, 1 year overdue, that sounds like things have backed up a little bit. I hope he won't be mad at me. Well, I wonder. Let us know how that goes. Jersey P is here as well. Bon dia to you, Carl, and everyone on the GMP show. Hey, Jersey. And I'm wondering, before the common era, that's not right, is it? Good morning from Maria Jose Fernandez as well. Maria, good morning to you. How are you? And you're clean, and you've got the tick for being clean on your Facebook profile. I suspect that is your property that you're speaking about, or your establishment rather than yourself there. Tell us more, if you will. Lovely to see you here, Maria. I hope he'll schedule the colonoscopy within a week. We're happy to talk about anything here, aren't we? I don't wait a long time for it. I hope you don't have to. Good morning, people. Yes. There are many other jokes that are these childish people here, I suspect, will make Moaz, and just ignore them if they're being silly about that. Good morning, people. Big shout out to the people who joined us in the first Cave Business Forum meeting. I think that went well. I put my feedback in capital letters. Excellent. But I think that's coming. It is Man Cave people, but they're being a little more serious than they might otherwise be. So B before the common. Really, what does that mean? BC equals BC without the Christ. Before Christ. I know BC is before Christ, but what is BCE? Bon dia. I mean, is it really? Where have we got this? Before the common, which doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't even stand. That abbreviation doesn't even. Okay, 15 minutes completed yesterday by Deagle. Yes, not missed a beat on that. And Bon Dia Vintage Teflon at Moaz. Oh, that he means it in a very positive way. Don't worry. If anyone's new here, and by the way, I have the audio on silent because I'm in the waiting room. We're laughing at you, and you can't even hear about that. Oh dear. Okay. You can listen later. Sono pasi questi romani, ancient Gallic saying alla asterisk, not asterisk, asterisk. Okay, and what does that ancient Gallic saying mean? Sono pasi questi romani. I wonder, is it suitable for broadcast? Bon dia, Algria, a todos de Pedrogo. What? Are you really? Wow, great news, Mark. Usually in the UK, in Pedrogo Grande. How is it over there this morning? Latin, the origin of the Portuguese language, the red tiles, the mosaics that gave origin to the calçada portuguesa and inspired the Arraiolos rugs designs, the olives, the wine, the roads, the sewage, or the treatment thereof, and the plumbing. How about that? That's to answer the question that came up before. Um, that is what the Romans did for us here in Portugal. Excellent. Well done, Prof. Thank you, Maria, as well. AD. Yeah, Anno Domini, I thought, rather than after Deum. I'm going to have to get to the bottom of this. No reference to your colonoscopy there, Moaz. Bon dia todos, Jim White. I bet that the medical specialist has to say that, doesn't it? I'm trying to get to the bottom of your situation here. Pardon the pun. I've been enjoying making that joke for 12 decades now. Bon dia. We have morning sun for our beach walks today in Alvor. Excellent. And sorry the video didn't play well. That was my fault. Your amazing garden. We'll find a way of showcasing that correctly. Oh, we've got some DC3 pics as well, thanks to the prof. Morning all from a very sunny Oxford, but missing my beautiful Algarve. Gemini's here as well. This is fantastic. Dougie's in. Morning. And 11 hours ahead. You are in the future, aren't you? Jean's here as well. Fantastic. And puppies, Nigel Henry's puppies, are all at their new homes and doing well. We've got a third place at Crufts in our class. The dogs did, not them, of course. Marilyn out to the house shortly. Might get to Man Cave shortly too. There you go. Bob's in as well. Before the Common Era. Why so complicated? Was that upsetting people, BC? SPQR actually meant Senate and People of Rome. Senatus Publius Curumanum. I want to put a toga on and shout out from the rooftops when I see such things. Oh, these Romans are crazy in Italian. Okay, look, 4 minutes to go before we have Paul joining us this morning. Shout out to, there's a few Brits in this morning, and on future recordings or future viewings of this, get in touch with Paul at FWM if you've got any pain points, that his words, not mine, about managing your money here in Portugal, especially for British people, but more general ideas about how to protect your wealth in troubled times. Oh, Gene's in, and Owen, are we seeing you tomorrow, Owen? What you got for us tomorrow, mate? Part of the problem with before Christ is that Christ was born between the 6 and 4 BC. Yes, of course. Okay, I understand it. So they're making it less generic, I suppose you might say there, and referring to that specific time of 0 from which all things have been measured thereafter, mostly by this culture. Not meaning to offend anybody with that. Okay, so let's have a look then at these, because we might have to take the DC3 picks onto tomorrow or even Thursday, moving to Portugal back in the day, because we've got these lovely photographs to share of Porto before Paul arrives this morning that came in from Gary Orgles, who's here with us, of course, this morning. Some of these might not be yours, and they might have got mixed up with other people's pictures. Let us know, Gary, but let's have a little trip through Porto using your excellent photography skills here. Porto's so beautiful. I think there's a lot of work going on there at the moment. And you can see an iconic bridge here, of course, and a super bock canopy as people are drinking beers. What is it called up there? It's not an Imperial, is it? A Fino up there. Queriam Fino, faz favor, if you're asking for a beer in Porto. Look at that wiring, everybody, here on Consumer Tuesday. Don't worry if you see that sort of thing outside your house, your casa. That's quite normal here in Portugal. I wonder which one is the broadband and et cetera, et cetera. And then look at this. Fantastic. What a lovely composition there. Superb. Dog walks man. Lovely lady takes photo of dog walking man mural. Superb. Who's this? Somebody sat on a balcony. I think it's an eye-catching mannequin, everybody. Don't worry. Another angle of the mannequin. She got no clothes on, that mannequin. Cheeky people of Porto. Honestly, look away. If you don't want to see a naked lady, albeit a mannequin on the Good Morning Portugal show. That made a lot of people look, I suspect, rather than look away. But that's a cheeky little bit of street art, I suppose you could call it that. And a little bit of CCTV. Somebody on the phone, but still catching you with their beady eye there, Gary Orgles, taking pictures of my balcony. How dare you? I hope you asked if that was okay. Oh, and the song we sang the other day, which the tune of which escapes me now. La Vauma, Lavandouche there. So a little trip around Porto. Let's carry forward those vintage tap photos till tomorrow or Thursday. And thank you for those, Prof. Good fun this morning. Your origins of Portugal species. I've got another Vingle to make, obviously. Raji is sending things in. The oh, it's okay. Sorry, my WhatsApp was playing up a little bit. I might have time to do these later, but they're fantastic. Raji, your pictures from Furrow, a church there, or church in Furrow, and James, thank you. Great to hear from you via WhatsApp. 913-590-303. It's just after 9 o'clock here on the Consumer Tuesday. A little later on, we might go to some of those consumer stories in Portugal. But now, let's welcome our mate from Gibraltar. Let's try this shot instead. Paul from Fiducia. That's it. He's doing a shuffle.
Good morning, Carl.
How are you, Paul? Paul Correa.
Not too bad. Not too bad. And you?
I'm very well.
I witnessed you in full flow speaking in Portuguese. Quite impressive, I must say.
Thank you. Did you catch my Roman as well this morning? I have
no. That must have been earlier. Yeah, I missed that one.
Yes. But we've been all over the place this morning with nothing new there. How is Gibraltar this morning?
Wet and windy, so nothing too exciting, I have to say.
And the weather's not too good either. Okay, and it's so good to have you back.
Thank you.
You join us in these somewhat turbulent times in the world, where obviously people are considering, oh my goodness, prices are going up. I have my fund of wealth to see me through possibly my retirement, and there may be worries for people. And I know you especially help British expats and people who are already here in Portugal. But we can have a wider ranging conversation as well about what to do, because it's always exciting talking to you about that. Do you remember Kate, who was sometimes? Oh, where are we going? Go for a little walk there.
See whether that's a bit
Changing
better.
The angle. I think it's counterintuitive with this, because you want to move one way, that's it, and then you need
exactly.
to move. I get that myself. I'm just about used to it now. So yeah, you Brits, if you've got specific questions, I think you called them pain points, Paul, for the Brits who are managing their wealth. What sort of thing, as an example, do you mean by that? What do people typically struggle with?
Well, that's a very good question. I think everyone thinks about moving across and getting a non-habitual residency permit or a golden visa or a D7 visa. And the way I see that's just a certificate, right, for residency. But the journey is long and tortuous, and there's a lot of things. But it's true. There's
true.
So
you're
many,
right. I'm laughing because it's true.
There's so many things to consider, and it's really, really important that you plan your exit correctly from the UK, but equally that the arrival is smooth and seamless. So I consider things like, how do you ensure a clean exit from the UK? Have you considered the UK statutory residency test? How many ties do you still have with the UK? Whether that would re-trigger UK tax residency? How many days do you plan to spend or return to the UK every year? And what are the consequences of overdoing your stay? The issue of UK domicile and therefore potential UK inheritance tax liability. What is the value of your estate, and the need to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So in other words, plan as if you're going to be deemed liable for UK inheritance tax. Again, completely lost on many individuals that move across. How best to draw your income in Portugal? If you're in receipt of UK dividends from a UK company, should you continue receiving that as a form of dividend? Again, depends on the scheme on what grounds you're a tax resident in Portugal. disposing of UK shares in a UK company, whether that's tax efficient under the non-habitual regime, um, tax-free lump sums, and minimizing pension income on drawdown. These are just some of the many considerations that one has to factor in to
Yeah,
make
and this
sure. Yeah,
this of course isn't just for British people. I mean, this is for everybody, really, isn't it? And they have to deal with these issues in their country of origin. But you make a very good point, and this is not stuff we necessarily want to talk about, is it? You get the visa and the status in the new country, and it's like yippee! I'm going to have my
hey,
coffee and pastel de nata. I'm going to be drinking cocktails, watching the sea coming in and going out, and all this stuff needs dealing with, doesn't it? If you've got it back home.
exactly. And are your investments, can they grow in a can your investments be sheltered in a structure that allows them to grow free of Portuguese capital gains tax? So you have the gross rollover. So many different pain points and so many problems and so many things to consider. And of course, the larger your estate is, the bigger the problem, right?
Indeed. Yeah.
Like everything else in life, the more money you have, the bigger the problem. And
I
and
think
you,
of
you
yes. I think of it was. I don't know if it was. I don't know which rapper it was, but Mo Money, Mo Problems. I think he was
exactly.
quite right in saying in many ways. Okay, so a good problem to have, you could say, because it's nice to be wealthy, of course, in relative terms, in our place in the world, and privileged as we are. But clearly, not the sort of things you can necessarily tackle for yourself, or would even want to, as onerous as they are. And obviously, you need the help of a professional, somebody like Paul here. And so you deal with all of those and more, do you? Is that what your daily world looks like?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything which is moving for Brits moving to the Iberian Peninsula, whether
Okay.
that's Portugal, Spain, Gibraltar, that's really our niche area, our sweet
Yes.
spot. I mean, that's
Yes.
what we focus on, that migration that keeps, growing really from the UK to those countries, and complicated by a post-Brexit world where
Indeed.
you need visas and things are not so easy anymore. And then, of
Indeed.
course, you've got the turbulence and the uncertainty of um, a war on our backyard and inflation, which is raging and completely out of control.
Yes, yes. Not to mention, notwithstanding such a scenario as well. Incredible, isn't it? The times we're living in. So yes, back and forth that you mentioned there, post Brexit scenario. There's not. That's how Nigel's dealing with it. 90 days here, 90 days there. That's very disruptive. It's a big change for people, isn't it? So this is the sort of person that you might help, Nigel Henry there, and sadly somebody who you might not be able to help, but makes an interesting point nonetheless. Ubi, as an American becoming Portuguese, what percentage of investments should ultimately be held denominated in euros, or is it better to just keep everything in US dollars? Can we make that a more general question then? Because it is a good one, isn't it, about holding things in your native currency or swapping them over into Portuguese currency? Have you got anything to say on that, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and there's no simple answer to that question because it depends. Are we talking about an American that is now fully tax resident in Portugal and intends to remain tax resident in Portugal, or is it someone that may return to the US? Look, what I would say is that the US dollar has strengthened considerably in the last few months. One,
Right.
because it's considered a safe haven currency, and in times of potential war and geopolitical tension, then investors will seek refuge in safe haven currencies like yen, Swiss franc, dollar, and sterling. And then, of course, you have the possibility that we see this week, the start of rising US interest rates, and they'll probably rise faster than in Europe and in the UK. So that attracts hot money into the US. So short term, I expect to see the dollar continue to be strong. Medium to long term, I think the dollar is overbought. And I think considering the amount of monetary dilution in the US through quantitative easing, I think the dollar should lose a fair bit of value. So in answer to a very complex question, probably the best thing is to take advantage of the strong dollar now and have a bit more exposure to euros and
Yeah.
sterling. because it would be a good entry point, not for the totality of one's assets, but as a
Yes.
means of hedging and spreading risk, and say, okay, the dollar is really, really strong. Should I just, spread my currency risk in at levels which are, um, very good entry points, I think, for selling dollars against sterling at 130, against euro at 109. That's not bad.
Yeah.
And you have to drip feed. You don't have to. It's not everything or nothing. It's gently spreading that risk.
Yeah, well, obviously, you and I, whenever we get together, we like talking about the bull and bear angles on this, and this is a time for, I think, bearishness, isn't it, rather than bullishness, and that's how you roll. But just to finish off then on Ubi's question there, which was a good one. OLP appreciating that as well. And we've heard when we speak to Spartan FX, they've illustrated the big differences. Oh, and by the way, this is not financial advice. These are opinions that we're sharing this morning. We're not here to give you to tell you what to do. You're big grown-ups and you could make your own decisions. But here are a few opinions this morning. And if you want to engage with Paul on a professional basis, do so. And I'll put the link in the comments, of course, and on the screen. But find Paul in our business directory, Fiduciary Wealth Management, FWM. And yeah, but it's been a great time to buy euros from the UK and US point of view, isn't it? But very volatile, as I think you've also alluded to there. 2% shifts in a single day. We've got highs going back over 5 years and 2% shifts in a single day. These are the challenging times you're talking about, right, Paul?
I mean, the volatility is extreme, and there's a good reason for that. The war, and then of course the fact that markets have been, I think I've been saying it now since 2021, since we started with the radio shows. I think, I'm a bear. I think stock markets are overpriced. Not all of them. There's
Right.
pockets of value in Japan. There's pockets of value in emerging markets. There's pockets of value in Europe. But I think the US market in particular is overdone, and tech stocks. And there's only one way from here. And they've been protecting during the pandemic the global economy from rolling over, and stock markets from crashing through quantitative easing. But the end game, at some point they have to stop the stimulus, and that's what they're doing now. They're starting to curtail and cut back on that stimulus, and starting to raise rates from something which is ridiculous, 0 rates. When you start tampering with monetary policy, what you get is policy errors, because you don't start raising rates fast enough. And the market is now uncertain as to where we're going from here, and the price of that is extreme volatility. And inevitably we might end up with a massive bubble and a stock market crash that we haven't seen since 1929. I think I know that people should be skeptical with my predictions because they haven't turned out to be correct, but timing is difficult in this market.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but it's a tricky market, not one for faint-hearted individuals, and not one where amateurs try to make decisions based on what they hear in the pub.
Yes. This is what I love about talking to you. Where's Kate? And these were the long-standing discussions we had, didn't we, about economic policy and how
Yeah.
about how national economies weren't households. And long may that debate continue. But to be fair to you and to acknowledge you and your positioning in these things, and no one can call the date, can they, or predict? And because we wouldn't be in this situation if they could, obviously. But you have taken this very measured and safe position on things. That's the matter of record, isn't it? If we wind these back to the beginning, and that's presumably what remains your approach. Let me put it that way in these times, because we've got the extreme volatility. You're suggesting we may have, what is it? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. We are looking at a 20s. Isn't it incredible how close the resonance is with the 100 years ago, and the 20s and the 30s, and the Spanish flu and the pandemic, and the people want to party now, don't they? And I think they probably will. Are you seeing this, Paul, as well? Is people are thoroughly fed up with the impact of what's gone on in these last couple of years. They now the skirts are going to get shorter. more lipstick will be worn, more drinking, more boozing, more partying, and then something is coming in the pipeline because it can't continue the way it is, can it?
No, it can't continue. Look, there's a limit to how much debt a country can take on before it starts eroding your power to grow your economy. Yeah, you
Yeah.
kind of, it's like an individual, yeah? And you've got your credit cards to the limit, you've got loans and mortgages, and it gets to a point where a greater proportion of your income diverts towards debt repayment and servicing, yeah? And it
Yes.
slows down the ability to enjoy life.
Yes.
A country is no different. And
Mm,
the more debt you take on, at some point it comes to bite you in the backside, and
yes. And
that
it's
that's just a reality.
and it's happening on a bigger scale, of course, when it's a country. And they have a number of experts working on hiding all of these things, don't they, in the great economies of the world, just to kick it down the street a little bit further. But we need to prepare ourselves, I would say.
Yeah, but the thing is, they are trapped because central banks should be look like this week we're getting the Federal Reserve possibly raising rates by a quarter percentage point.
Yeah.
Inflation in the US came in last week at 7.9%. Do you
Wow.
really think that a quarter percent increase in rates is going to curb inflationary pressures? And that was before the war and
Yeah.
before the oil price hit $130 a
You're
barrel.
you're
Ca-
asking me, Paul. Even
ca-
I can
ca-
see that's not a very good formula.
Exactly. I mean, that they are just playing the game,
Yeah.
pretending to be taking strong measures to curtail inflation,
Yeah.
but it's just a symbolic rate increase. And the fact is that they know full well that if they were to raise rates to the level they should be, which should be 2% above inflation, that's 10. Yeah, the global economy would go into a shock, and
Yeah.
the stock markets will drop 90%. So,
Yeah.
inevitably, I see inflation raging on, and the end game is a frightening one. The only thing they can do is if they can, the war has thrown a span in the works because what they were playing is the long game. Raise rates a bit, but not too much. Let inflation rage on, which deflates the value of the debt. So it deflates the debt, which is great, but they weren't expecting inflation to be so high. And now, with inflation at 8, 9, arguably, I think it's double digit. Those on the lower income brackets have a massive reduction in their disposable income in real terms. So,
Hmm.
it hits the lower income bands.
You said arguably it's double digit. Are you suggesting there that the number published is not necessarily the true number?
I don't believe it's a true number.
Right.
I think for ages they've played with the basket of goods and services to try and manipulate the actual inflation. But everyone who's gone to the supermarket will know prices have gone up during the pandemic 20-30% easily.
Yeah.
And the fact is that, as I said, we haven't factored in rising a couple of things. A significantly higher oil price hasn't been factored in. And we're not factoring in the fact that there's going to be supply chain disruptions because Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe and they
Hmm.
supply wheat, corn, soya, and so forth.
Yes.
They are moving away from Russian oil, so they have to look for alternative sources. That cannot come on stream that quickly. So that
Mhm.
creates more supply demand imbalances, again pushes the oil price. I don't think we've seen the end of higher oil and higher commodity prices. I think this is just the beginning of a longer cycle, which will
Okay.
last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay. That's the view you have on this at the moment. 5 years of the impact here. Bon dia alegria gumpers from an overcast Nadaduro. Thank you very much, Cindy B. Good morning to you. Just wait, watch. I'm not sure what Nigel's referring to there, but that can be good advice at sometimes, can't it? Rather than panicking and doing anything rash there. More money, more problems. I've got no worries then, Pam. It's an interesting point, but I think this affects us all, doesn't it? That's the thing. Even Brits with pension. This is something that has to be dealt with because Rebel Mama makes a similar comment. Hola, pessoas ricos. I think that's hello, rich people. That's all of us, actually, incidentally, isn't it? In this part of the world, not this part of the world. I mean, this demographic. It's incredible what makes you rich if you earn over just a few, tens of thousands of dollars a year. You are in the 1%. But anyway, not an interesting topic for me. Wealth has never interested me beyond what I need to live a bit comfortably. I don't believe in capitalism. That's like saying you don't believe in gravity, isn't it? So you might not believe in it, but it's all around you, isn't it? And
But you know what makes me laugh with that last comment is the polarized view and the
Okay.
narrative which is driven by politicians.
Okay.
Capitalism, communism. Do you
Yes.
really believe that the Russian economic model is a communist system when Putin and his oligarchs have made so much money? At the end, it's just a narrative that politicians use to divide and conquer.
Interesting.
What kind of communist system does Russia have?
That's so fascinating because that suddenly puts you and Rebel Mama on the same page again. I think there,
Precisely.
Yes, divide and rule by the ruling classes, and yes, I saw a meme yesterday. I think it was, Paul, where it's like, what is the difference between these tech stock giants in the US? I mean, they're oligarchs of a different kind, are they not? They were in the right place at the right time, and the printing of. Let me just run this past you to see if this is correct. So that the printing of money, as James points out here, the US approach to economic policy, it's in here somewhere, but just print more. So the stimulus, the printing of more money. And then people can buy those tech stocks and inflate the prices of the tech stocks, which you think are overinflated already. That's oligarchical, isn't it? That's people getting rich out of opportunism and a rising market, which isn't necessarily a true value. So there are US oligarchs as well as Russian ones, right?
Well, it's a good point. Let me go back to the US market and the S&P 500 index. Yeah. Everyone has been buying, the logic has been buy on the dip. It can only go up. But that is because it's underpinned and supported by unlimited supplies of quantitative easing by the central bank. Once that narrative changed and the central bank, the US Fed, has said, now we're stopping quantitative easing. Look at the S&P 500. It peaked at 4,900. It's 4,173 last night. And it's trending lower. Just look at the graph. It's trending lower because, the tech stock as a sector compared to other sectors within the S&P is completely out of sync with historical correlation. And it's starting to converge again. It diverged during the pandemic because of the quantitative easing, but now it's starting to converge because the prices of tech is coming down quick and fast. And remember that tech is a long duration asset, which is very sensitive to rising interest rates. So as interest rates in the US rise, even though I don't foresee that it's going to be as aggressive as some people make out, or the Fed insinuates, notwithstanding that, I think it's going to hit them hard.
Right. This is incredible stuff. Fascinating to me, and I think, am I right in suspecting then that yours is a collaborative approach where you're wanting people to be responsible for their wealth? Because this is also a trend that's gone on, isn't it? You've got fund managers in the States, for example, who are buying these tech stocks to fund the pensions of people. And in passing, somebody might completely trust their wealth manager or their pension company. Oh, they're buying tech stocks. I've heard they're really safe. That's great. But then at the other extreme, other end there of that sort of distant and that investment where people don't know what's going on. I heard that a Canadian teachers fund had invested in Russian stock, which got wiped completely because of the sanctions. These sorts of things can go on if you're not on top of the situation and don't know what's going on with your own money, right?
Absolutely. I think this is a very difficult market for anyone to price. I don't profess to have the answers to everything. I just know that we've created a problem, and now we're trying to extract ourselves from the problem, thinking that it's very straightforward. It isn't a straightforward path coming out of this one. It can't be. And I know my economist friend Kate has a different view that you can just print and the party continues, but time will tell.
Which she's right until it doesn't, of course.
She's
And
right until she doesn't. Yeah.
yeah, and the other way is true as well, isn't it? You know, if you watch people like Max Kaiser, you know, they've been predicting this same collapse, as many people have, for I think for the time I've been watching, of maybe 15 years. But like you say, you can't predict these things, and one school of thought is going to be right, ultimately, aren't they? With this, I think. Ubi, like the cut of your jib, like the answer there sounds reasonable. Thanks. I converted a small amount of US. He was just testing you, I think. Here, I converted a small amount of US dollars to euros 2 months ago, and of course, the euro lost value. There you go. I'm a fan of peer-to-peer lending as an investment. Would you have recommendations in the euro market at my age, looking for return versus growth? Oh, that's interesting. So, can we answer this more generally about whether there should be an age concern and whether it is right to? I mean, yeah. I mean, is Cindy B saying there, like when you're knocking on a bit, you want the money, you want to see the money, Jerry, and not be looking at long-term growth, or have you got to find a bit of a balance here?
No, you have to find a bit of a balance. It depends basically on what sources of income you have besides your investments, right?
Yeah,
But I understand there's a growing need for income v growth, and it depends. It's very individual, Carl, because do you have sufficient income and you're thinking about your legacy and passing on to your children,
yeah,
or are you just interested in driving income? And then
yes,
in terms of peer-to-peer lending, I'm not a specialist in that field, so I can't possibly comment. But I
okay,
would imagine that there's a high degree of risk as well in peer-to-peer lending, right?
of course.
So there is risk, and I don't know what regulatory framework governs peer-to-peer lending and how safe it is.
Okay, all right. So be careful with that. I mean, I suppose with peer-to-peer lending, you get the satisfaction of an angel investment, don't you? Where you can be investing in something you truly believe in, and you might have an interest in it. You might be on, virtually on the board, as it were, and steering it in the right direction with your wisdom. But yes, it's risky, of course, as well. And I don't know how that's regulated. So, Carl, are you getting out your short skirt? And it was metaphorical. The raw. I don't. I mean, I suppose the answer to that is it's a good time to invest in short skirts and lipsticks if we're facing a roaring 2020s, right? And booze and all sorts at the moment. What do you make? A question from B. Hello, B. Great to see you again this morning. What do you make of the Amazon stock split? What does that mean, Paul? What's going on there? I don't know what that means.
No, it's a bookkeeping exercise, because when the price of a stock is very high, say, I don't know what Amazon price is, let's call it, for argument's sake, $300 a share.
Yeah.
Then it becomes, for the small investor, it becomes very expensive to buy the stock. So what they
Uh-huh.
do is they do a stock split. Let's say this, for argument's sake, the stock price was $100 a share.
Yeah.
So they do a stock split of 5-for-1, and then suddenly your price becomes 20, but you've got 5 shares rather than one. It's a bookkeeping exercise to make the shares more marketable in the market.
Cheeky. Okay.
So
So it's like a chocolate
yeah,
bar. Yeah, just it's like a chocolate bar becoming smaller. You pay the same
yeah.
price, you get less chocolate. Okay, fair enough. A bookkeeping exercise there, B, the answer to that one. Question for you, Paul. Do you think you should try to buy your own home to counteract inflation? Is that a good move in these times?
Well, I think it's a very good point, Michelle. I think hard assets will perform well in this kind of inflationary environment. But it
Yes.
depends in which country you buy the home. Portugal's property prices have already gone through the roof and might continue to do so. But
Mm,
things change. Look, we just had last week saying that the European Union is now looking at stopping all these golden visa schemes across. I think Cyprus, Malta, and one other had.
yes.
So they might stop it for all we know, and citizenship by investment,
Yes.
which is what the Russians do. So that
Yeah.
could impact the market. But look, do I think property is a good asset to counteract inflation? As a general statement, I would say in this market, yes. I think anything which is a hard asset will keep pace with inflation and
Yeah.
probably outstrip inflation. It's not the only hard asset, but it's one of the assets that you should hold. Yeah.
And there is a distinction
definitely.
here, of course, isn't there, in investing in property and owning your own home. I know Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad guy, says your own home is not an asset because
Correct.
you've got to live in it. You can't realize it, can you? You've got a roof over your head, but it's not an asset in the strictest
You,
sense.
you're talking about rich dad, poor dad, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
No, absolutely. I think if you look at all these wealthy people, they'll tell you don't buy your property because it's exactly as you said.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's
Paul, you can find Paul FWM Management, Fiduciary Wealth Management, they in expatsportugal.com/business directory. Let's go see if we've got some more questions here for you, Paul. As you can see in the ticker at the bottom.
Can I just say something very quickly?
Of course
We are
you can.
in
Of course.
we
No, I'm not.
we are
Carry
we
on.
are we are in the UK from the 29th of March to the 5th of April. We're doing a roadshow moving to
Oh,
Portugal. So if there's any Brits listening in and they want to meet up with me, they are welcome to do so.
excellent. So, how does that work? Are you at a hotel or something in London? What's going on?
Yeah, well, we'll be in Bristol, Birmingham, and Manchester, but predominantly in London. We're attending an event which is being held in London for moving to Portugal. But besides that, we will be working throughout that week. Over the weekend, we're available 8 till 8, and we can have a chat about, you know, exiting the UK and pre-arrival and everything that needs to be done.
Paul, what's your preference then for people to email you about that or use the
Yeah, to email me would be great.
Okay,
Um,
let's
just
get that
just
in.
drop me an email. It's paul.correa@fwm.gi, and we've got a team there. Will be a couple of us, and we are happy to sit down and have a chat
Okay, that's great. And it's like financial rock and roll on the road, on tour in the UK.
on the road, like the Rolling Stones. That's how I feel
Indeed.
nowadays.
Oh, funny you should mention that. The Rolling Stones have left off Portugal on their tour, much to the disappointment of, I think, many of their fans. Anyway, Paul.Correa, you say, at fwm.gi. Let me put it on the screen so people have got that. That's so you Brits thinking of moving to Portugal, you can have a chat. Presumably, the first chat is free of charge there, the first
Yeah,
consultation. Is that right, Paul, on the screen there?
correct. Absolutely.
Okay. And Gary Orgles may well come see you on that. So Bristol, Birmingham, at least, and London. Okay, let's go. Let's go back to some of the earlier comments here, which are fascinating this morning. Always good to talk to you. And we're not really got on to investment in troubled times. You know what some of the safer bets are at the moment. Just advice, just an opinion, not advice this morning. But we'll come back to that. And I suspect you will go to our our usual suspects of safe investment. But let's find out about that in just a moment. Let me see. Oh, lots of great comments. I'm just finding my right place here. I'll have to. I don't know if you'd recommend this, Paul. I have to give up drinking. That's my strong rate, 10% there, he's saying. You don't have to be so rash, Nigel. I've always been known for my subtlety. We love your subtlety in inverted commas, Rebel Mama. We don't mind a robust chat here, do we, Paul, in the mornings?
No,
Yeah.
I'd rather have a wild goose than a dead herring any day.
Where does that phrase come from?
I think
Just
it's
made it up.
brilliant. No,
It
no,
is absolutely.
it's better to have a wild goose than a dead herring.
That is
So
superb.
so being rebellious is great.
No problems with that here. A US approach to money issues, just print more. And it's true, isn't it? This is what's going on in the United States. And it's been a long time. Look, we've got to the 32-minute barrier before cryptos were even mentioned, Paul. What's your take on crypto? Has your view changed at all since we last spoke? I'm curious what your clients' experience has been like with the tax implications. Cheers. So still in Portugal, no capital gains tax on cryptos. But what are you thinking about them these days, Paul?
No, I maintain the view that it's going to get regulated
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's going to get taxed. I
Yes.
think most central banks will issue their own digital currency
Yeah.
and they'll try to elbow the crypto. Do you think there's space for crypto? Well, so long as there's interest and demand from investors and they still believe that it is I wouldn't say a store of value, but it's an investment, then it might keep roaring on. I think probably in the short to medium term, I think they have a few uh, bumps in the road.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, never in the history of any human wealth creation have a government thought to themselves, oh, we'll just leave that alone, shall we? And not bother taxing it. The opposite is true, isn't it? It's like, that looks like a good idea. We'll make our own version of it. We'll regulate it and we will tax it until its eyes bulge. That is how things work, isn't it? As we've discovered
Absolutely.
in the course of human history. Okay, Paul, thank you for that. And Sam Sam Nazare, who's actually in Australia. So V, mysterious V here, the UK, in brackets, Russian government are doing nothing here, not capping the energy companies like the EU are, rising taxes to pay for their hard Brexit is a view there. And yes, Rebel Mama on our way to London, I think there. If you have to loan, don't. No mortgage, no loans, own property when right. Do not buy large consumer goods yet. Check currency, watch the markets. Now, there's always going to be the opposite of all of these sentiments, isn't there? Because it's the right thing for the right time and right circumstances, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone is different. The circumstances will be different. You know, you can't say don't own property. Well, it depends on your net worth and how much money you have. Yeah, because if you
Yeah.
have a lot of wealth, you might want to buy a property in these times.
Yes. And you can get a very competitive loan at the moment, can't you? Of course.
And you can get a very competitive loan. And look, if they're lending you money at say 2% and inflation is 7 or 8, what a
Yeah.
wonderful way to make money, right?
Indeed. So we do. I mean, I understand the sentiment being expressed there, Nigel, and it's a good old-fashioned one, isn't it? Without a doubt. But there may be times when it is worth taking the risk in the illustration that Paul gave there. When you Rebel Mumble, make sure you bring disposable masks with you when you come to the UK. With all restrictions ending on Friday, the case numbers will rocket there. Some prophecy there from Chris. Putin has been installing the same kleptocratic system here in the UK, so more of a view there from V. And we live in a world of kleptocracy. Johnson and Putin have ravaged their economies for personal enrichment. Okay. Any questions for Brits, for Paul here on the pain points? I mean, I like that, Paul, how you phrased that. Pain points that people are dealing with and the sweet spot that you operate in. Two key phrases. Why are the rich Russians called oligarchs, but rich Americans called role models? Yeah, that's the point that I think that was being made before. I don't believe communism is the answer to capitalism. Yes, so we're back on the same page there, I believe. Okay, what's this? It's 9:19 and we're already on the revolutionary mode. Yes, that breaks out here from times, and it's understandable in these times, isn't it? Russia has billions in real estate in New York City. Even Russia is a capitalistic. Of course, it is, isn't it? But that's been the smartest thing, I suppose, isn't it? Is to pretend to be something else whilst operating possibly the best or worst, as we might see it, capitalistic values. If you have money, buy property, but carefully, is what Nigel's saying. And so many retirees hit their pensions, are hit probably in their pension schemes long before they retire. There's a good point and an interesting one. For decades now, people have thought, I'll just retire and live on my pension. How are those pension funds looking, Paul?
Well, it depends what kind of pension arrangements they've done. It depends, you know, do they have a defined benefit scheme where the employer is responsible for any valuation gaps?
Yes.
In other words, that there's a hole in the financing of those defined benefit schemes, or do you have a defined contribution? How much have you built in your defined contribution schemes? You know, what is the impact of the what do you call this? The lifetime allowance limit, which is $1 million. If you grow over that, you have a crystallization benefit and then the tax liability in the UK.
Yeah.
This, you know.
So this is another reason to have a chat, isn't it? Because just like with what we've discovered with our mate Nunu from Winsurance, just because you've bought health insurance here doesn't mean you're covered in the way you imagine. And just because the Pfizer shot, you're encouraged to get it, but it's got a massive piece of paper that folds out to the size of a world map in there with some of the small print. And it's the same with what we're talking about here, isn't it? You know, it's like it's no good just thinking I'm covered because I had a chat with a financial advisor 20 years ago who set me off on a certain path. These things need to be active, don't they, and alive. in consultation.
You'd be surprised. Many people just Google the question and then speak with mates and put it all together and say, okay, we're ready now.
We're
I
done.
think we're done. We're done. Everything is sorted. There's no gaps in the advice. We know
Yes.
exactly how it works. Look, would you go if you had a legal issue? Would you go to court and represent yourself in court, or would you go to a lawyer? You know, at least to me, it makes very little sense that you
Yes.
try and self-medicate. Yeah, if you have a health, if you have a health issue, do you go to the doctor? You just Google, a pain in my neck. What could it be? And then medicate. It just doesn't work like that. You
Indeed.
need professional advice, and particularly when the consequences of doing it wrong could be significant.
Indeed, absolutely right. So, yeah, whether you believe in capitalism or not, you're talking about your personal wealth here, which you're probably relying on, everybody. Companies with low debt and high cash generation should be okay in an elevated interest rate environment. He's calling you Shirley, is Omar Esak. That would be the tech behemoths. I'm not sure I understand the question. Is that right?
No, I think he's got a very good point and a very valid point, because you look at the Amazons and they are cash cows, and they are so profitable. They've created a lot of free cash flow generation, so they're sitting on a cash pile. So it's true, but let's not forget that in their balance sheet they also carry a lot of debt, and because they are deemed as long duration assets, in other words, that you're looking for the growth. And in a high interest environment, growth gets hit, which means that their P&L gets hit. Then people will move away from tech, from long duration assets, which are very sensitive to rising rates. So yes, on the one hand, it's true they are the high cash generation, but equally in an environment of rapidly rising rates, they get decimated by a higher rate environment. So
thank you for that, Omar.
It's a good point, though.
Yep. And also, to be fair to economists, Ubi makes the point here that economists have predicting 13 of the last 3 recessions. You might want to use that, Paul. That's really very.
I think that's amazing statement. Yeah.
Well,
I think economists have a really bad reputation for making predictions. You're right, but in fairness, there's so many variables at play that sometimes it's difficult. But she's right. She or he. I'm not sure if it's a he or she. He's right.
He, I believe, Ubi. I don't know for sure, but Ubi, I think, is a he. Sure, global financial issues affect us all, but there is little the not wealthy individual can do to mitigate it. Now, that may or may not be true, of course, because we have assumptions about ourselves in these situations, don't we? Only the other day, I heard of somebody. It occurred to them that they'd been paying into a pension pot years ago. And they'd forgotten about it. They moved jobs or something. And this thing had been growing behind. I think there's a number of them. And I think it was a financial, wealth manager who said to them, well, what about that? And what about that? And next thing they knew, they had a lot of wealth, not insignificant amount of money that they'd just forgotten about or left behind them. And then, of course, that pot needs careful release or management or whatever. So I take the point, Pam, for sure. But often sometimes people are more wealthy than they imagine. And they've also forgotten about things, or they don't know about some of the hacks that could help them with pensions, for example. If you have a UK pension, there are hacks, aren't there, Paul, that you can do to maximize the drawdown or the benefit.
But that statement that Pamela is making is a typical bias. We all have our own biases, yeah?
Yeah, indeed.
And that is how the lens through which we see the world. So we think, if you haven't got extreme wealth, there's nothing we can do. And we believe our own biases. I don't think that statement is true. And you're right. I haven't got the stats to hand, but I read recently that there's so many pensions. There's something in the UK called pensions tracing, and there's so many pensions where they've lost track of where the people move homes, and then they don't claim it. There's hundreds of billions of pounds in untraced pensions.
Amazing, isn't it? It's quite incredible. And that's because a lot of people who believe themselves to be poor or don't have this opportunity, have walked away from them. Ironically as well. Fascinating. Okay, in the UK, the wise man invented in property apartments as a retirement plan. Then Grenfell happened due to the cladding scandal. His properties costing him money now. Nigel Henry is right. Buy carefully. Nigel says we should be looking to help the children for their future too. Giving is great, but at the right time there. Okay, and what's this, Gene? True, people are often told, trust me, by advisors who are paid, but and he's run out of steam in that comment there. But yeah, I mean, mate, do your due diligence. Absolutely right, Gene and Rebel Mama. Talk to people and work with people who you trust, build a relationship. Absolutely. And in the 30s, if we take them as a benchmark, those with money in the bank and stocks and crypto will be the ones that lose the most, as they will produce nothing. Landowners are those with tradable assets will do best, I think, is the last bit of that comment. Yeah, that makes sense, of course, as well. Hold on. Oh, reduce your debt. I mean, again, that on the face of it makes sense, doesn't it? But to minimize your risk, but some debt is good if you can afford it.
In an inflationary environment, debt is your friend. Yeah,
Yeah.
debt is
Yes.
your friend because
Yes.
again, depends on the level of rates. But as I said earlier, if interest rates are close to 0, 1.5, and inflation is running at 10,
Yeah.
you know what, the debt is being devalued over time. So actually, your debt can be a friend. I
Yeah.
go back to the same thing. What we need is hard assets. We keep talking about property, but I insist gold and silver and agricultural commodities and industrial metals will perform best in this environment. And, particularly with the geopolitical tensions that we are seeing across the globe. And, for all we know, it could spread beyond Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah. Indeed. Okay, we've got loads of comments and chat. I'm concerned there might be a question in there for you, Paul, or somebody wants to talk to you. Got a thanks, Paul, from Michelle from earlier on. If you want to get in touch with Paul, you can do that on our business directory, Fiduciary Wealth Management. There, of course. Have you got a couple more minutes then for us? I don't want to squash your time, but the title of the stream this morning is investing in troubled times. So are you looking at, are we returning to those safe precious metals, for example, and things that are destruction proof in difficult times? What are your thoughts, your closing thoughts on that? And whilst I look for some other comments here, Paul.
No, my closing thoughts haven't changed since, I've been consistent now for well over a year.
Yeah.
And I think, in periods of economic turmoil, which has been exacerbated by the Ukrainian invasion and the geopolitical tension, I think precious metals, industrial metals, which are key for the green revolution, and agricultural commodities with supply chain disruptions, and energy for that matter, because we talk about the shift to green, but oil, it'll take a while before we shift to green. So oil still has a place. So with all those issues in the background, I think, gold and silver, industrial metals, nickel, platinum, palladium, copper, and then agricultural commodities will perform extremely well. We have to be patient, but they will do well over the course of the next 2 to 5 years.
Yeah. Incredible. Anything else that we should know about? And I remember taking your advice on this. It made a lot of sense to me, and I had a little flurry with it on my Revolut app, because you can buy stocks quite easily like that, and look at some of the safer ideas that you were talking about on some of the webinars and morning shows we did. Anything else in your concluding remarks here? Look. Andy's asking from, have we had Paul's couple of company investment tips yet? Are you going to get into specifics, which isn't advice, but a little bit of a tip or two? Or do they need to get in touch with you, email you perhaps for those?
I think they have to email, but we wouldn't go into specific companies. I think this is not a market to go into individual companies. I think it's a market to be much more cautious than that and have greater diversification.
Yeah. Okay.
But happy to chat to anyone who wants to. But I think the most important, you start with the journey, and then once you arrive in Portugal, it's a question of the planning and what assets to hold. but
Okay.
it's a tricky market, yeah, for everyone.
It is, and so there you go. He might give you a tip or two if you reach out, especially those Brits. Oh, let me. That's not right. It's Paul.Correa at fwm.gi there. So let me
Correct.
do that correctly so that you can get in touch. But you can see on the screen there, expatsportugal.com business directory / fiduciary wealth management. Get in touch with Paul there. Don't forget he's over in the UK as well for you Brits, Bristol, Birmingham, and of course in the capital. From time to time on that. What were the dates again there, Paul?
Yep, I'll be 29th of March till the 5th of April,
Yep.
mainly in London, but we can trip to Bristol, Birmingham, and Manchester to see clients who are planning to move to Portugal, because the theme of our trip is moving to Portugal. And
Okay.
there's a lot of demand, and I think the most important thing is pre-arrival, that the UK exit is done properly, and the arrival, everything is restructured. So rather than arrive and then try to solve your problems, we think it's important that you do it prior to moving out.
Yeah, well, this is the advice we get from Spartan as well on the currency exchange. Don't leave things too late. Make room to talk about these things, and then you can do it in a relaxed and structured way rather than when there's some major problem occurring. There's Paul's email address. I feel like I should be with you on that tour of helping people move to Portugal. I'm sure we'd have some fun doing that. And for the late comer here, look at this. I don't know if that's a precious metal that he's fashioned that helmet out of. There, nice helmet, Andrew. Precious metals safe in these times. I think he's a latecomer.
Yeah, because I think if you look at the fundamentals and even at the technical picture, I think gold and silver they've been sideways trading for since August 2020.
Yeah.
But it's going to break out at some point to a much higher level. Not just because of the geopolitical tensions, but because the central banks they haven't got they haven't got the tools to curb inflation. It's running out of control, and raising rates is a very dangerous thing to do in a market which is already unstable. So I think they have limited firepower to curb inflationary pressures, and meanwhile inflation rages on. So gold and silver will take off at some point.
Yeah. Another great input here from Pam. Are most people here investing in stocks and shares then? I think there's two things I want to talk about here, if you're okay for another couple of minutes, Paul.
Yeah.
Is the idea that all wealth management is in stocks and shares, because it's only just part of the picture, isn't it? And whether people invest in stocks and shares or not, they probably are if they're in a pension, through in a second-hand sort of relatable way. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, stocks and shares. Look, in this environment, you can't buy bonds, because with interest rates anchored at zero, and rates will slowly increase from the current level, that's very negative for bonds. So this is a market where, unlike our past, where bonds and shares were not positively correlated, they're both positively correlated. So higher rates can be very negative for bonds, and maybe less so for shares. But you need to have a wide spread of asset classes in a market like this. You need to diversify your risk and be in the right areas. It's not a market where you can have your traditional 60% shares, 40% bonds portfolio. That doesn't work anymore.
Okay.
Modern portfolio theory, 60-40 rule, doesn't apply in a market like this.
Like so many things out the window. Let's finish with a laugh here. Then we got Jean. Sorry about the colonoscopy delay. Don't worry, they'll always get you in the end. Very good. We'll say goodbye laughing this morning. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Good luck with the tour in the UK, and we'll see you, of
Thank
course, back here again next month. I get in touch with Paul on that email address there, paul.correa at fwm.geo. And that is, of course, especially for Brits there, but we'll have another one of these more general chats next month. Take care. Lots of love to Gibraltar.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Best to everyone. Thank
Ciao, ciao. Bye for now. There he goes. That's Paul Correa there, of course. I always find, I don't see myself as certainly not a wealthy person or somebody especially interested in those sort of intricacies of finance. But I always find it fascinating talking to him from that sort of geopolitical and where the world is headed kind of way. So thank you everybody for taking part in that conversation this morning. Dare we have a look at some consumer news here? The Portugal news front page, certainly homepage, was littered with consumer items this morning here on Consumer Tuesday. Tomorrow, if I whiz all the way back to, I think it's gonna be lost in the comments. But Owen, are you doing your chicken tomorrow? It's not the KFC, it's the OFC, Owen's Fried Chicken tomorrow. So looking forward to that. We're going to have some live cooking, or at least if not live, here's some he prepared earlier and we'll learn how to make it. So bit of a surprise tomorrow morning, to me anyway, and then therefore for you, about what's coming our way, but certainly some tasty treats from Owen, who will be with us tomorrow on Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday. Ask anything specifically about food and drink here. So a lot of fun on a Wednesday. And I'm not sure if the amazing Austin brothers are involved or not tomorrow. We will find out tomorrow. Join us for that at 8:30. Cheers, Paul. Very interesting from Nigel Henry as well this morning. And Rebel Mama and Joao F having a very interesting chat. That could be segmented out and be its own program. I was trying to keep an eye on that. And I may have to go back to that later and have a little look. V with some very interesting comments as well. And Pippa is here from Botswana. Joined in late. Bon dia, Gumpers. Have you sprung forward, Barney chance there? And I did try Andy of the Porky Feet. But you'll have to get in touch with him. Drop him an email if you want to know a few of those tips, and maybe talk to him about your vast fortunes. And your pension arrangements and so on. Quasi erotic novel entry. You look smashing, he said to the like emoji. Smash it, folks, smash it. Okay, so let's go and have a look at this front page now. As the gutting news for Rolling Stones fans that the Stones are not coming to Portugal as part of their tour. I wonder why that is. I do wonder, but I'm not going to go into any of these particularly, but we're just painting a picture here. And it's not a good one. I mean, this is a global situation, of course, but it's tourism revenue triples. This is, I suppose, good news in a way, but still below pre-pandemic levels for tourism. 2.1 million overnight stays in January. It's a lot of people, isn't it? And 853,000 and some guests there. So to Portugal in January. Producers already admit to rationing food. What do we make of that as a headline? I imagine that's a bit of, on the one hand, you could think, okay, well, prices are going up. Maybe they're going up because the producers are already admitting to rationing food, or have they got our best interests at heart? I wonder there. Pandemic reinforced the image of real estate as a resilient sector. So Portugal continuing to come out well after the pandemic in so many ways, but also in real estate there. EU agrees to include Abramovich on sanctions list there, somebody who got one of the Sephardic Jew visas to come to Portugal there, Roman Abramovich. Inspections, like consumer news, CTT, the postal service here in Portugal. Inspections find deficiencies in CTT postal service. We could have told them that, couldn't we? But there you go. It's official. 19th century shipwrecks, not consumer news, but look at that. 19th century shipwreck studied in the Arade River. The Stones leave Portugal off their tour. And there was something else I saw for you to tell you as well. Remittances higher from older immigrants. That was interesting. Not from France, as you might imagine. That's money from Portuguese people who've emigrated, creating money for the economy here, but in other countries. And yes, to continue with Abramovich there, the Sephardic Jew residency investigation continues. Tourism Board not concerned about Michael O'Leary. Is that his name? And his carrying out his threat to cancel flights in and out of Lisboa. So the tourism board here not concerned about Ryanair cancellations. So there you go. I don't need to tell you, do I, that petrol prices are going up. here and have been continuing to do so. But there is that iVoucher scheme, which you can find out more. I think the best place to go for that is the Finances portal. And diesel up, there you go, the story there from the 12th, a few days ago. But even then, diesel up 13 cents and petrol 9 cents next week, which will be this week, of course. Voice is going, and so am I then at this time of the day. Thank you, Gary Orgles, for your lovely photos of Porto earlier on. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. Yes, fondle that like button. Like us, Maximus. Are you still here? Capricorn Chris. And what did I miss? They are the funniest. I think I need to go back and see what else I can find. And do I need to issue a dad joke warning today? I think I might have to. Let me just see what is being said before we leave today in about a minute's time. Most important takeaway is to diversify, says Gene. Too many people have lost their retirements because of all their ex was invested in just one thing. And yeah, Enron, obviously. God, crushing blow to Enron investors at that time, of course. Great input, insight there, Gene. Thank you very much for that. Gumper coming to visit me soon. Oh, that's nice to know as well. I can't wait to watch the replay, says Moaz. It looks like an important topic that I missed today. It's a great discussion with Paul this morning. Yeah, I think, well, just to reiterate that after giving you a blast of this, actually, I think it was Gene's sort of half dad joke, half medical joke. If your dad was a doctor, it's a sort of joke they may have made or they might make for you. So here we go. Let me give you a blast of this.
Warning.
Those for you, and thank you very much, Gene. Sorry about the colonoscopy delay, especially for you, Moaz, who might be listening now. Don't worry, my friend. They always get you in the end. Thanks, folks. Any more comments and that I've missed that I need to include will come up during the titles, and we'll see you tomorrow for some lovely Owen fried chicken. How about that? Ciao for now.